lips. I just want lips. Whatever. Okay, so anyway, thanks. I don't have any makeup on, or I have like my, whatever you call it, my foundation and eyebrows, but I just think there's a lot of people that are just really, you need to put yourself in, like, I've gone through a relationship with a narc, and when you're in their crosshairs and when they are playing their games with you, you do not, they keep you completely unstable. They're constantly trying to pull you back in, and they're doing things to get your attention, and then they gaslight and tell you that they're not doing exactly what they're doing, okay? And he's a target of hers, and he is her supply. And so, yes, he looks pathetic, but if he was a female, you guys would be very sympathetic to him. You'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry, man. Like, you would be like, you would feel so bad for her if it was a girl. Ken is too, which is, again, why I just think focusing on what the boys are doing is irrelevant. They're all, even Brianna is also in the crosshairs of a narcissist, okay? And all she's doing is regurgitating and spitting out whatever it is that the Blanchards want her to say. And she believes that she's being righteous in her fight. She believes she's protecting her because Gypsy is a very good pathological liar, and she believes what she says. And it's very convincing. Watching you makes me cold. What? I'm not cold, though. What do you mean? Can I heat up my house? I'm not cold. But they basically just, they have a script that they use, and they just say the script over and over and over again. And so you start to believe it the longer that you speak to them. And they convince you of things, and then if you start to look at things and sort of question things and go, wait a minute, no. And then they get so good at the story, you start to ignore the truth. And you think that all of their explanations make sense because it's impossible to believe that someone would literally lie to your face. And they make you feel like you're the most important person in the world. They tell you that they love you. You're like family. They love bomb you. They literally love bomb the hell out of the people that they want to bring into their circles. You're just like a sister to me. You're just like an aunt. You're like my best friend. Christy says that about everyone. And Brianna wants to be a part of the story. She does. She doesn't do this because she's defending Gypsy. Real friends that care about someone that is going into re-entry would not be encouraging this kind of behavior. Recidivism is a product of the people that you are surrounding yourself with. And if the people that you are surrounding yourself with are engulfing you in the negativity, yes, Bree has shown herself to be you know what I mean? Yes, she's been very awful. She wants to be associated with a famous person, and recidivism. Okay, I'm sorry. Regardless, but it's a product of who you have around you. And if you want to be successful and not get and reoffend, and reoffending doesn't mean that she'll get caught on parole. It's about long term. Is she going to commit a crime after she's off parole, because right now she says the only reason she's behaving is because she's on parole. So if that's the only thing that's keeping her in line, she's going to reoffend. They're attracting codependent people to do their bidding. Natasha, Brianna, and Ken. No, Natasha's not an idiot. Natasha's just doing this for clout. She's not codependent. Christy hates her, and Natasha hates Christy. They hate each other. I've been around the whole time, you guys. This whole thing that they did last week where they're like, we love each other, we're like sisters, they hate each other. It's all an act. It's all BS. Christy lost all of her friends. She lost everyone because of what happened when Gypsy got out. She lost every content creator that has ethics and morals. And Natasha is a loose cannon. She's morally bankrupt. She put out the autopsy of a child. She made national news for selling an autopsy, access to an autopsy of a child, posting photos of a child's body. That's who Christy's associating herself with, okay? And yes, that's what she did. She's mean. She's run so many frauds. She has been caught. She's been permanently banned on YouTube. Natasha Cooper did. Gannon. Oh, thank you. Gannon Staunch. I didn't follow the case. He was a little boy from Colorado, his stepmom. He was found in a suitcase. She put that out in her Patreon. Stotch, sorry. Thank you. What's going to happen is, if you just witnessed what happened to Ivory Rose Grows in the Bayou, and listen, I don't condone the escalation of someone driving after someone. You know, she was pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, and she drove past, and the Bayou people do Bayou things, and sometimes they like to throw hands in the Bayou, and she drove past her house, and she didn't commit any crimes when she did it, but she probably shouldn't have done it, right? But that doesn't excuse the weeks of her, the weeks that followed of what they did to her, okay? And Gypsy is elevating and escalating people to feel like her life is in peril, right? Her mom put her life in peril. Nicholas put her life in peril. Ryan put her life in peril. You know what she told me? You guys, you know what she told me on the phone? She said Ryan charged at her, okay? And it was unsafe. And my parents had to come and save me. And I will see all of it play out on Lifetime. And I had to hide in the bathroom. Doesn't that sound familiar? She's lying. That didn't happen. She also told me that Ryan was on medication for people that have rug problems. Like maintenance, you know, those maintenance stuff you can take when you have a rug problem for the poppies. Subbies. Or no, not subbies. The other one. The one that has the M, the letter M. She tells people that he's doing that. Do you think if she had, the parole board would release her to someone because one of her stipulations is she can't be with anyone that's using, and even though it's maintenance, it's a lie. It's a lie. She just makes up whatever she can to smear people. Now, Ryan, I wanted to respond to Ryan. Ryan said, he responded to something yesterday and he said, the D is fire or whatever. And he goes, I'm sure she does miss the D. Well, Ryan and Ken, please listen, because she's going to say this about you too. She said this about Nick already. But Ryan, she told us that your D doesn't work, that it's really small, and you can't get it up. And that it was terrible because you couldn't get it up. It was broken. She told us that his D was broken. So Ryan, when you're not listening, she's telling all of her friends that your D doesn't work and it wasn't fire, and she was lying. And she said the same thing about Nick. They had sex in the bathroom, right? But she wants to change the narrative now. And 10 years later, she says, well, he couldn't actually get it going, and so we didn't. We just pretended like he did it. So she lied about Nick, and she also told Nick that she was the V card. She lost her V to Dan. She lost her V to Dan, not to Nick, you guys. She lost the V card to Dan, not to Nick. Dan was her first boyfriend, not Nick. Okay? Dan was her first boyfriend. He was 19 years older too. Yeah, that was her first boyfriend, not Nick. I run my nose a lot. She wasn't on rugs. She sometimes stole her mom's rugs. I have a sinus infection, you guys. I've been on antibiotics for a week and a half. But Dan was a felon, and that's why Dee Dee didn't want her hanging out with Dan, because Dan was caught with speed. You know, what do they call the M word? We used to call it crank back in the day. He was caught with crank in front of a child and paraphernalia. He was charged with felony. That was Dan. He was a dealer of glass, ice, whatever you want to call it. That's why Dee Dee didn't want her involved with him. He had a felony. He was on probation when Gypsy was dating him. And he was almost 20 years older than her. No, Dan doesn't need to comment, because honestly, Dan's not involved in this. Dan actually tried to help Nick in his appeal. And he testified in Nick's appeal, one of his appeals, and said that Gypsy was actually into BDSM with him. And he was actually introduced to it by her. And she was obsessed with it because of what book? What book was super popular around the time that she was doing all of this? What book? You guys, think about the books that were super trendy and popular. 50 Shades of Grey. She got into it because of 50 Shades of Grey. And she introduced it to Dan, and then she introduced it to Nick. And Dan testified at Nick's appeal that he and her had an intimate relationship and they did the role playing. Yes, she used to entice men online. She would go into Facebook groups and she would sneak out of the house to meet with men. She had a bus pass. She started running away when she was 11 years old. This is not like, I don't know, it's just wild that they think they can put out propaganda and it completely reframe what happened and that the public is stupid. One thing that she told me, and this is, if you want to know, one of the reasons I started to question things, they told me that Gypsy never had thoughts of hurting her mom before Nick. It was Nick that put those ideas in her head. That's what they told me. Okay? It was Nick, evil Nick, that put those thoughts in her head. She never, ever considered doing it before. Okay? And they were telling me this for years. And then what happened in December? Or in early January? She wrote a book. And what did she say in the book? And then Prison's Confessions comes out. And then she starts and writes about how she pew-pewed her mom with a BB. And I called them and I said, you told me that Gypsy never wanted to do this, and it was Big Bad Nick that put this in her head. But she didn't know Nick in 2011 when she did this. So was it Nick that made her do this, or are you lying about that too? Hi, Lauren, Cherie. I see some of your videos sometimes. And they were like, yeah, we didn't know that was going to be in the book or in Prison Confessions. She lied to Christy and to Rod while she was incarcerated, and they believed her lies. And they found out that some of the crap that they were telling the world about her was totally fabricated and made up. They figured out very quickly that she was a liar and that she would lie to their face. And she is such a pathological liar that nothing that she says can be taken for truth. I wouldn't even believe Gypsy if she told me the sky was blue. I wouldn't believe Gypsy if she said the grass was green. Because she lies about everything. And she has no conscience at all. She told Dr. Phil, you guys, she said, oh, thank you, Faith, for the corgis. Yes, we're doing a corgi goal. She told Dr. Phil, I'm a very good liar and I have no conscience. That has not changed at all. I took some screenshots of, this should show you, she lies about everything. So don't, even when I was in prison, even when she was in prison. Hello, Ellen. Ellen, is that you, friend? Is that my Ellen? Is that my Ellen? Okay, she's a danger to everyone in her family. I'm was a content creator that Christy reached out to in 2019. That's my connection. And I was friendly with them for years. Oh, do you want to see some more proof? Okay, so Vicki Lewis is like her BFF, Christy's BFF. And I don't know. I don't know if I can show this. Well, maybe. Hold on. They get so weird though. Okay. So this is Vicki Lewis. This is after I got off the phone with Gypsy. And I said, she does not fight fair. She was telling me about their fights. And I was like, girl, oh my God. And Vicki said, I know, I told you a long time ago. And she said, well, I sent him the photo with Ken so he can get me on adultery. And she said, I want out as fast as possible. So then like, but aren't you and then I said, but aren't you using Ken then? And she said, no, because she never stopped loving him. So she maliciously sent a photo of herself with Ken to Ryan so that he would divorce her and file for adultery. She told me that. But she doesn't play games, right, Bree? Bree said she has never done anything to mislead Ryan ever. Bree has no idea what she doesn't know because Gypsy only tells Bree what she wants to hear. And Gypsy gets Bree ramped up by poking at Bree's emotions. That I think Bree is motivated by the injustice of people getting hurt, okay? Bree is motivated by people being targeted and bullied online. And so Gypsy pokes at that at Bree to get Bree, oh, thank you, Lauren, to get riled up about that, to get her to do stuff for her. Bree, they're doing this to me. Bree, oh my gosh, I can't believe this would happen, Bree. She gets Bree riled up. She fights, so she doesn't fight fair with Bree. With Ryan, she sends videos of Ken. But she also, when she has fights with Ken, she calls Ryan and says, I miss you, I love you, I'm sorry. I wish we could get back together. She told me that. And they lied to me, okay? So when I first saw the trailer, so leading up to the show coming out, the story I was told was that she had to leave Ryan because Ryan charged her, cornered her in the bathroom, and put her in danger, okay? That's what they told me. She had to hide in a bathroom. She had to be rescued from Ryan because her life was in danger. And then Gypsy says to me, I was so proud of myself because I was able to leave the situation and not do what I did to my mom. Why would that even be? What? Why would you even consider that? She said that to me. What's up with her in bathrooms, right? She had to hide in the bathroom with her mom. So they made me feel like they ramped me up, they hyped me up. So here's what they knew about me. They knew I had a boyfriend that was very awful to me, that I was a survivor of narcissistic stuff, and I had a history with domestic V with my ex. And so they knew all the pain points for me to hit me and to get me going. So that made me hate Ryan, okay? And I made emotional posts about him, and I was like, he's not safe, and because they got me ramped up for them. Lauren, you went through that too. Oh, I'm so sorry. But they also knew that I was a mother of a child with a disability with medical issues. And so they would also do my pain points of all of her trauma regarding all of these different procedures that she went through. Okay. So they got me ramped up to thinking that this was the whole fight was because Ryan, right? But then when you watched the series, what did you notice right away? That almost immediately it was all about Ken. And then I started asking questions like, well, maybe you were having problems because you were still talking to Ken. Maybe he appeared controlling and jealous because you were still talking to Ken and you were making him think that he was crazy and you were lying to him. You made him paranoid. And I don't know if you've ever been cheated on, you guys, but I have been cheated on. And when you have been cheated on, your cheater will make you look like a lunatic. They will make you look like you're the one that's being controlling. You're the one that's being scrolling through their phones. They make you look crazy. No, you're crazy. Yeah, they gaslight the hell out of you. Like they come home and they smell like perfume and they're like, what are you talking about? I just used lotion at the club. You know the ladies that sit outside by their, that put the lotion in there and you can tip them? Yeah, that's what I was using. They always have a lie for everything. And so the night that they broke up, it was so weird. She was out eating, and she was just so like weird. And I was like, that looks really anticlimactic, Gypsy. That didn't look like an explosive fight. That looked like, where was the part? Where was the part where he charged you in the bathroom? Where was the part where he was screaming and yelling at you? Ryan was crying and she was just stone-faced and cold. And Gypsy's response to me was, I was just checked out at that point. I was already gone. And I said, what did we miss here, Gypsy? I said, where's the fight? You told me the fight was going to be in there. She said, we decided that we were going to cut the fight out because he still needs to have a job when this is over. No. Y'all, this is Lifetime. This is the freaking network that had Tanisha banging pots, waking people up in the middle of the night, and became a hit network because of what? The Bad Girls Club. They would have loved a fight. They would have loved a fight. She told me that they left it out to save his reputation. Oh, that was Oxygen? Lifetime has a trashy show on it. What is it? Oxygen had Bad Girls Club. Okay, so what does Lifetime have? They had... Let me see. I know they have trashy shows though. Oh, Dance Moms was on Lifetime? Come on. Abby? Abby's Abby. Project Runway? Little Women LA, Married at First Sight, Surviving R. Kelly, Drop Dead Diva. Okay, so if they have Abby, that's all I have to say. You know how Abby is, right? From Dance Moms. She was crazy. She was always screaming, cussing, yelling. And so you know, if they would have had that filmed, no, I don't actually have a staph meeting because I don't have a staph infection. I have a scar right here, but I don't have a staph infection. But Brianna, thank you for showing up on your burner account. Dance Moms. So she told me that, I said, oh, that's weird. I said, you have that kind of editorial control on your show? She said, I have a scar on my lip. I have a scar right here from a staph infection. And it's covered right now. So it looks like it's a little bump. But I don't have a staph infection. So you have the kind of editorial control. See, you guys, I've covered a lot of reality shows. I've seen a lot of reality contracts. I've spoken to a lot of reality stars. I've worked on different projects with them. I've had them on my channel. Tell you one thing, you don't get to control what's produced, like ever. When you sign a contract, the network says, we can exploit your information however we want to exploit your information. We can do anything we want. Did you know that the producers of The Bachelors, do you know what they used to do? They would chop people's words together and make them say things that they never said. They literally did that on The Bachelor. So a girl that said like, I can't believe that girl got hit by that bat and it's terrible, would somehow become like, that terrible girl is a bat. Because they would like change all the words to make them say something they didn't say. That's what reality television is. So when she was like, I was just doing it to protect his reputation, I was like, I'm not dumb. I'm not dumb. I know how reality TV works and you're fucking lying. But I didn't say that to her face. But I didn't believe her. Okay? But when I saw the trailer, this was the message that I sent to Vicky. So that makes it look like she left him for Ken. That's how Lifetime did it. Gypsy doesn't have much choice in the trailers. And I said, I know. And I know what all Gypsy told you. I know you are aware there's more cooking up at this moment. Can we talk? That was because she was pregnant. The cooking part was that she was pregnant. So, and that was before the public knew. She's due in January. You guys, I don't do the stupid conspiracies. She's due in January. She got pregnant at Jazz Fest. She's not lying about that. She went to the doctor. I saw a video of her at the doctor when she was actually in the doctor's office getting the positive pregnancy test. Like, she's due in January. I don't want to speculate, but Gypsy is a very small girl and she has a microdeletion. And I don't know if you're aware, but when Gypsy was born, she was really small. She was like 5 pounds, 5 ounces. She was a small baby. And she has a genetic abnormality and a microdeletion. And there's a high likelihood that her baby does too. And if you have a small baby, she wasn't a preemie. She was 37 weeks. And she's only 4'11". The speculation dilutes the real conversation. Well, I'm not speculating. Gypsy was born at 37 weeks. These people are such fucking idiots. So Katie is a medical professional now? No, I'm telling you that Gypsy has a microdeletion. Bree's gonna have a whole meltdown about this because I released text messages, even though she released text messages. If the baby has a microdeletion, she might also be born small. And Gypsy is also very short, very short. She's only 4'11". And she's short not because her mother starved her. She's short because short stature is a byproduct of her microdeletion. So was the feeding difficulties, so was her feeding tube, so were her eye surgeries, so were her ear surgeries. You know, I was watching this creator. She's really cute. She works in construction. She's so pretty. And she was kind of breaking down the medical procedures that Gypsy has had. And there was one thing, I don't care to watch anything about Swoop. Swoop, no. No. I don't dislike her. She just has a way of over dramatizing stuff that happens on YouTube that isn't really that serious. I'm sorry. Yeah, no comment. Like she turned this one whole like drama into this whole thing, and I was like, it's not that deep. And she calls people dangerous that aren't dangerous. Like, it's hard. Okay. Becca Scoops, you know, Becca gets some things really right. What I wish she would do more is say that it's her opinion. She's not a doctor, and she's not a psychologist, and she diagnoses her with things. And I think it's fair to say she has antisocial personality disorder. That's not what I'm talking about. But she did Dee Dee's autopsy, and she said this is the stab wound that unalived Dee Dee, and that's not true. The medical examiner couldn't determine which one. So I don't think Becca should be, that was like, she's an RN, but an RN isn't a doctor. And the medical examiner she's not a cardiologist, she's not a medical examiner. She shouldn't tell people this is the wound that unalived her and this is how long it took, okay? That was my one issue that I had in one of her videos. But yeah, Becca has some stuff right. I have a child with autism, and she has said things about autism that I completely and wholly disagree with. She said that people with autism can't lie, and that's bullshit. She factually said that people with autism cannot lie, and I was like, my son lies all the time, Becca, and he's autistic. And she didn't do postmortem autopsies. She's not a doctor. She's not even licensed to. And then my other issue with her is that she kind of came out of nowhere, and she claims to have all of these sources. And I'm someone that actually has experience with this family, and I offered to share that with her. I have like a ton of information about the case. I know the case inside and out. I know the family inside and out. I know everything that they do and how they track. And it's like, she always says she has these sources and that she's spoken to law enforcement agents. Like, who? Why are they talking to you? She was like some lady. Like, Do you really think that they're talking to this lady named Becca who didn't even have a channel yet? Bree is not credible. My son is on the spectrum. He lies a lot. She definitely gets some parts right, but she over dramatizes other parts, and she underemphasizes. She uses a failed appeal attempt by Nick as a factual basis of, she uses the opinion of a doctor that was written into an appeal for Nick as the basis of who Nick is. That an opinion of a doctor in that appeal wasn't accepted by the court, and so it was an argument that didn't work. So therefore, it doesn't mean that much. Like, sure, it can help explain things. And another thing is Nick is an 82 IQ. That's not impaired, okay? You're not considered cognitively impaired or intellectually impaired until you're at a 69. His IQ is low normal. Low normal. Well, Nina says that he's low IQ and he's not low IQ. Yes, Nick was on disability. Absolutely. Why do you think I need Valtrex? I'm not sniffing. I don't have nose running down. Like, I don't know why you think I need Valtrex. I'm not picking my nose. I'm not sneezing. And mentally, our word is not a word we use. And I think, if I'm going to be completely honest, and this is just me, like, person to person, but if you want to tell the story of Gypsy, tell the story of Gypsy. But when you go onto panels and you start mocking what these girls look like or how they're dressed or what they wear, you start calling them names, making memes out of them, going on panels that are, you know, degrading their appearances, like Christy or Gypsy or Bree or whoever, it takes away the credibility. Like, that's one thing I will never do. I'm not gonna make memes of Bree or of Gypsy. I'm not gonna make fun of what Christy and Gypsy wear. I'm not gonna engage in that kind of dialogue. And then another thing I've noticed about some of these creators is that, and this is just me being very sensitive because I do have a child that has a is cognitively impaired. So a cognitive impairment is different than an intellectual impairment. I don't know if you guys know that. Your cognitive is part of the IQ, but it's a different part. So you can have decent intelligence but have a cognitive impairment. And I have a child that has a cognitive impairment, and he is significantly impaired. And I don't like how they want to advocate for Nick, but then speak really not so kind about people that are dealing with whether it's cognitive impairments or, you know, intellectual disabilities, and all of that. So I think if you want to be taken seriously, you need to get out of the panels that are being petty and talking petty and, you know, degrading people. Why are you guys talking about cold sores? I don't have cold sores. This is why comments get turned out. I don't have a cold sore. I had, what do you call it? I had dead skin. It's cold here. I picked some skin off my lips. Yeah, my lips got chapped and I picked some skin off because it's cold here. So anyway, chapped lips. Yep. So they don't. So my son has had full psychological neuropsychology. Like, I have books on his analysis, and I know what quantifies and how medically what constitutes. Now, you can be vulnerable, but Nick is 82. He's in a gray area, but he is not impaired. He's autistic, and his autism varies, apparently, and this is what is weird. His whole life, he was always tested, and I don't know if you're familiar, but when you have a child with autism, in the school system, they do your IEP evaluations, and they're usually every 2 to 3 years, just to make sure that your child still qualifies. And so they do a school autism test, and usually with autism, the level that you are doesn't change. You don't get more autistic or less autistic, and mild autism isn't even a thing. It's not a word that's used. They describe him as mildly autistic. That doesn't exist. It depends on how well someone can mask their symptoms and blend in, but they're still autistic. Most people, Nick is level 1 and had always been level 1. And then suddenly, this new expert claims he's a moderate 2. No. Nick is not a level 2. I have friends that have kids that are level 2. He is not a level 2. He's level 1. He had the diagnosis of Asperger's, which was formerly what it was called. It's level 1, and he's not a level 2. It has to do with how greatly it impacts your life. Most people that I know that are level 2 are not verbal. I know very few kids that are level 2 that are verbal. And most that are level 2 are also intellectually impaired. The ones that are like normalish or higher tend to be level 1s. When you're very, very young, level 1 is not mild. That's not what it means. Mild is not even a word that is used. It's not even about functioning. It's about how much it impacts them. My son is level 2 due to being nonverbal. So we went to an autism clinic when we got my son diagnosed the first time, and they said to get a level 2, you have to almost always be nonverbal. At the time, my son was barely speaking. When you get a diagnosis for your child that's really young, because so many kids that have autism are delayed in their speech and in their walking and all their development, it can look more severe than it actually is when they get older. So that's why they can move, but that's only because of their delayed development. Once they get to a point where they're going to get to sort of like where they're at, it'll never change. But everyone that's autistic is impacted by their autism. I'm a mom of a child with autism. I have a right to fucking speak on this, and I have ADHD, and I'm at times believe I'm spectrum myself. So I have every fucking right to speak on this, and I won't be told in my chat that respectfully I don't get a say in this. I have said, I didn't say ADHD is autism. I have taken tests for autism myself, and it said that I might be on the spectrum. I just have never formally got the diagnoses. But FYI, as a mom of a child on the spectrum, I have every fucking right to talk about the levels, and I said nothing disrespectful. I was defending autistic people. I said that there's no such thing as mild autism. That should be great, because mild autism would say that it would underappreciate the struggles and the obstacles that are challenges to that person. And then to say someone is severely autistic would completely minimize their abilities. So you want to say someone's mild, but then you're going to make them try to look like everyone else when we know that functionally that's never going to happen, and expect them to be like everyone else. But then if we're going to say they're severe, we're going to just make them feel like they can never do anything. Level 1 says, I agree with you. I will say this, that I hate the labels, period. I feel like it should just be autism. And then testing is done to determine what that person needs for services, period. I think the levels need to go away. It just needs to be autism. I think the levels are detrimental to the people that, because there's people that qualify at 2 or 3, and the reason they do is because they're nonverbal. But did you know that some of these people that are nonverbal are actually extremely smart and they can communicate? And the coolest thing I've ever learned about people with autism is their disability is completely different than other disabilities that have communication issues, because every single person that has autism, even if they're nonverbal, has the capacity to communicate. Every single one. They can there's people that have autism that have been able to do things with their eyes, like they can communicate through their eyes on an app. They have apps where they can push buttons. They have the capacity to communicate. Some people that are autistic have what's called selective mutism, but they're still super smart. They have picture boards. It's a unique disability. Who is Aphrodite? I muted her. I'm gonna, anyways, I muted her. And they're super smart, and my daughter has selective mutism. Yeah, so there's like a million, that's the coolest thing I ever learned about autism is like, when we first got diagnosed, the clinic was like, listen, it's probably not what you're expecting. I know there's a lot of information out there that might make you feel scared, but this isn't scary. Like, your kid's gonna be okay, And when you can actually start looking at the amazing attributes of someone that has autism, and you're like, this is like, the hyper focus is kind of cool. Now, unfortunately for Nick, his hyper focus was Gypsy. Although I do struggle with that because my son's hyper focus, and I don't know, his hyper focus has been the same since he was 2 and he's 12. So I don't know if they change. My son's has never changed. But that's just my son. I don't know if hyperfocus can change where it's like you're just going to be hyper-focused on Gypsy or whatever. That was one thing they can change. Okay. You said my son's changed after 10 years. Okay. Yours have changed? Okay, thank you, Sam. Thank you for sharing. I believe his mind changes. Katie Joy's mine's sons have never changed. They've been Thomas and Mario since he was 4. He's now 18. So my son's has been dinosaurs since he's been like 2. Everything is dinos, and now he's currently, his next hyper focus is also Mario. So he's like super into Mario and dinosaurs. Okay. So what I was talking about was that Nick had always been diagnosed as a level 1, and he had been a level 1 for like all of his testing and his social security. So, not everyone that has autism will automatically qualify for Social Security, but a lot of people do. And he qualified, and his qualifications was that he was level 1 autism. And so for a new professional to come in and then for the defense be like, no, he's actually 2, moderate 2. That was one part of this expert where I was just like, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. I think Nick is a level 1. That's how he comes across to me. He reminds me a lot of my son. Do I worry that he was easily to be manipulated? Yes. I think he was I think he's, one of the biggest things we've been told is due to my son's IQ level and his cognitive impairment, he is prone to manipulation. And it's very important to control who he has around in his life. And Nick's mom admitted to the police that they weren't doing what they needed to do to help Nick. But I'm not here to talk about Nick, okay? I'm not a pro Nick person. I'm not team Nick. Do I have thoughts and feelings for him? Sure. But Nick has also Nick knew right from wrong, and he still made that choice, okay? And what I don't like about the narrative that's out is that because he has autism, he didn't know right from wrong. He knew. He knew. He wanted to do it. He wanted to be the knight in shining armor. He knew right from wrong. And I would say that Nick was more a victim of narcissistic, like the triangulation and like the manipulation of a narcissist, where he felt like it was the only thing that he could do. But even then, he knew that she could leave. She manipulated him, yes, but you guys, they manipulated me And I never did that, okay? When he got there, he debated not doing it. And then after he did it, he regretted doing it. A part of the criminal justice system taking into account the person's IQ level in sentencing. Well, his was all taken into account. And what the state of Missouri determined, based on everything, was that even though he had autism, at the bottom line was he still knew right from wrong. And that's all that mattered. That's all that mattered. He knew right from wrong. He knew that it was wrong. He knew there were other options, but he wanted to do it. And they did determine that. They did. It's in the court documents. When a court orders something and a judge agrees, that's a determination and a fact of the court. If his diminished capacity defense would have worked, then that would have been a fact of the court. But his diminished capacity defense failed. And that's all I'm going to say about Nick. I think Nick should never be out of prison. I think he had a fair trial. The only thing was the interrogation, but I don't think there was anything unfair about his trial. I think it's a misconception that his trial was unfair. Nick was getting really bad advice. Really bad advice. He was offered a plea deal multiple times. They actually offered him second degree with a sentence of 25 years to life. And his dad was giving him bad advice. His dad kept telling him, no, you need to get what Gypsy got. And they offered him that plea taking into account his autism and everything. But because he was the one that did he had to get more time. He was not railroaded. Oh my God, you gotta leave. If you believe that, it was a fair trial. It was a fair trial. I'm not a pro Nick, because in this case, in my opinion, has always been that they both should be in prison still. And he's exactly where he needs to be. She should have never been given the deal that she gave. So I got completely lost here. So I was rereading her book, and I noticed, Gypsy doesn't like the truth. And I don't care if Bree is trashing me. I don't care what Bree says about me. Why do you think I give a shit what Bree the flying monkey says about me? All Bree does is regurgitate the bullshit that comes out of Gypsy's mouth. Do you think I give a shit that Bree is defending an unaliver and spends her entire day, 17 hours a day, going live about this girl, and her husband is a felon? I mean, my husband's definitely not a fucking felon, and I'm not defending an unaliver. Bree also told me that I go on bi-weekly benders. That was so funny. I was like, what's a bender? I had to look up what a bender was, and a bender was like multiple days in a row, usually 2 to 3 days at a time, of heavy drinking, of binge drinking, and then binge drinking means you're having 4 or more drinks in a 2-hour time frame. And I was like, so I guess my 2 glasses of wine on a Friday night is a bender. Okay, Bree. Yeah. So Melissa asked her, I'm with you on this, Nick, with Charlotte Bailey. Your research is spot on. You're just sharing fast. Brie is talking about herself. She is. Like, everything that Brie accuses me of is probably her problem. Melissa Moore asked this to Gypsy, and this is in her book, that the crappy book that came out. Yeah, everything Brie confesses to is her own misdeeds. Melissa Moore asked Gypsy, do you mind telling me the meanest thing that you've heard? Do you guys want to venture a guess what Gypsy said? I've already talked about Melissa. She's a mess. I think she's an opportunist, and she's a terrible investigative reporter. Does anyone have a guess? What do you think it was? She said, well, the M word. I get called the M word. What is the meanest thing you've heard? The M word. I get called the M word. And you know that I'm even worse than Nick, because he didn't have the weapon. He wouldn't have had one if it wasn't for me. They say you're the one who put it in his hand, and you're more evil than he is. So telling you that you did something and you put that in his hand is mean? You know why, Gypsy? I was already having problems with them, and I was like, I tried to ditch them in May. They love bombed me back, and I had a huge fight with Christy, and I was just trying to get rid. I was honestly just trying to get away from them, but Christy spent like all these hours on the phone with me, and she was like petrified that Gypsy was about to get revoked for her prison, for her parole. And I just sent Gypsy a message, and I was like, yo, your stepmom is really worried. Like, I don't know what you're doing, girl. But I hope you get shit straight with parole and you don't do what you said you're doing, you know? And she's like, I handled my stuff. Thank you. And then she blocked me. She blocked me because I knew that she violated her parole. And she didn't like hearing that. And then she told Bree that I was being nosy. But she actually told me that I should be able to come to her with anything, anytime, ever. She even sent me a text message about it. And then when I asked her about something that she said I could come to her for, I was being nosy. Gypsy is always the victim. Okay, so remember how I told you about how Rod was like cruising the groups for ladies and he was cheating on Christy? So another thing that she said that was mean was, sometimes the people who write have affected my whole family. After the act, people wrote my parents. Strange women wrote my father, a married man, for fuck's sake. People have no boundaries. No boundaries at all. So she framed it that these women that her dad interacted with inappropriately have no boundaries. It's their fault, not her dad's fault. Isn't it your dad that's in a marriage, not the strange woman? Christy, my dad, me, we're all guilty for engaging with some of these strangers. Some who have tried to become our so-called friends, Brianna, only to sell us out. But that's a whole other story. That's where trust and betrayal really become tricky theme in our lives. Do you know what a narcissist's favorite thing is to accuse people of betraying them? Does anyone watch Sister Wives? What does Cody Brown accuse all of the women of all the time? Betrayal. You betrayed me. Right, to switch the narrative. It isn't you that's engaging and willingly they're the ones that are going to all of these content creators knowing that this is what their job is, right? They're befriending people because they have a platform. They befriended me because I had a platform. And before Gypsy got out, my platform was way bigger than hers. And now she's way bigger than mine, and I don't give a shit. But that's why they befriended me. I don't have a huge platform on TikTok, but my YouTube channel has almost 400,000 subscribers. They wanted the attention that my platform could give them. But then now they accuse me of speaking out for clout. But I already had a platform before them. Did it make you feel good being verbally abusive towards someone with ASD? I wasn't being verbally abusive to someone with ASD. I was standing up for myself. That's how you guys love to spin this shit. They came into my live and said that I don't get to speak about autism. They told me that I wasn't allowed to speak on autism. And I said I have every right to speak on autism. I have a mother, I'm a child of a child. I don't even speak about my child, but I definitely live with a child with autism. And I've done everything to help him. And if standing up for myself is verbally abusing someone, I don't think I called them a name. Was that verbally abusive? I didn't call them a name. To be verbally abusive, you would have to actually degrade the person and call them names. I didn't call them names. Seems like you guys are spinning false narratives again. I am not claiming to be an expert on anyone but my son. And I was sharing my experience of what the diagnosis process was and how the levels don't often change and all of that. Anyways. You just used foul language towards an ASD people? Well, here's the thing. I guess saying fucking shit and saying I can say what the fuck I want on my channel is abusive. The trolls are always trolling. And you know, they'll probably clip it and say, Katie was abusing an autistic person. No, I wasn't. No. Do you know what the trolls did to me? They tried to make me feel bad because somebody didn't want to listen to me eat M&Ms on a live, and they tried to make me look like I was abusing someone with a disability intentionally because I said I'll eat what the fuck I want in my lives. It's not that serious. I think that's what you don't understand the controversy about me. I talk about controversial people, and no, Irish Tech Girl, if I don't talk about Gypsy, this comes with the territory with everything I cover. I cover cults and I cover narcissists. And so I'm used to this. I'm very used to this. It's been like 6 years. And that's why I rarely ever respond to it. No, I'm not gonna have people up right now, Camille, because I'm about to get offline. And I'm hungry. I need to eat. And I don't need to talk about Gypsy. You're right. I don't. But Gypsy is still profiting about this. Gypsy's friend is still talking about me. How dare you use the term normalish when talking about ASD? Wow, these people are really crazy. She's still using people on the internet, for sure. Lauren's like, I know, what the fuck? Actually, I was going to... I still think Bree is in love with Gypsy. She might be. I don't know. I think she just wants to be close to a pseudo celebrity, honestly. You know, I'm not bothered by Gypsy. I think it's weird when people come into your live and start telling you what to do on your own platform. I also think it's weird when you... Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Okay, Elle, I'm doing them a huge disservice by not listening to ASD adults. No, Elle, I do listen to adults, but I don't have to listen to an adult that's interrupting my live, telling me that I don't get to talk about something. Period. I get to talk about what I talk about, and whether you have ASD or not, I get to talk about what I'm going to talk about. And I'm not going to be interrupted in my live and told what I can and cannot say on my platform. And I do get to speak about autism. And if you don't like that, I'm sorry. I was not disrespectful. And I haven't been disrespectful whatsoever about the disability itself. But none of this So TikTok comments can be, I think it's just, you know, there are some people that believe that unless you have the disability, you don't get to speak on it. And it's like, I wasn't even literally saying anything about you. Someone asked a question about the levels of autism. I brought up, and I was looking at the information in front of me. I was speaking to my experience. We have done tons of advocacy. We've gone through lots of therapy. We've been to so many different clinics, so much cognitive therapy and life skills therapy and physical therapy and occupational therapy and speech therapy and feeding therapy. Like, we have gone and done everything for this child. A mom just said, we who raise our spectrum babies absolutely get to talk about it. We advocate daily for our babies. We do. We advocate for their education. We advocate to ensure that they get the resources. We advocate to ensure that they get the community resources. We ensure that they get the services within the community. We advocate and fight for their IEPs. We ensure that they get the accommodations in their classes. We're working. And when I say someone appearing more normalish, it's like neurotypical. They're trying to fit in. But just because someone looks neurotypical doesn't mean there are. There is actually something called, yes, it's called masking. There's something called autism burnout. And my son has autistic burnout every day when he gets home from school. And he comes home and I don't get a hello. I don't get a hi, mommy, I missed you. He has to go sit on the couch. He needs to pull out his iPad and he needs to just zone out and unload and let get all of that overstimulation that he's gone through, all those sensory overloads, everything that he had to deal with during the day. He gets to just decompress that out of his system. And then once he's had that time to get all of that sensory overload out of his system, then he's like the cutest kid again. And he's like, hi, mommy, I missed you. Love you. But I just know better than to try to engage with him when he's like that. You are talking about masking. You should not have said the word normalist. I just explained. I misspoke and I'm sorry. But coming in here under 27 different accounts, okay. Okay, so anyways, I'm moving on. It's weird because, you know, on like certain people's channels, they openly use the R word and they degrade Nick Godejohn and his autism daily. And I said normalish when I was off the cuff with my ADHD. Oh, can I use my disability too now? And say, well, I have ADHD and I am not neurotypical. And sometimes words escaped me. Deflecting doesn't work. Did I deflect? I said I was sorry. Anyways, I also thought I'm doing good. How are you guys? Oh, look at, I'm at almost halfway to my corgi goal. You guys. Oh my God. That scared the shit out of me. Whew. They're probably coming from Breeze Live. Okay, listen. This is, Gypsy once made a list of what it takes to master the act. The corgi goal is the gifts. Oh my God. Here, I'll show you. Achieving my first goal. That's my smoke detector. Okay, so Gypsy pretends like she doesn't know how to make friends, okay? And she says, my list of what it takes to master the act of friending. Hang on. All right. Sorry about that. Oh, ours are wired into the household too, but we also have, so our system is wired into the house, but then they have backup batteries. Does anyone else have those? Oh, thank you for the corgi, Vivi. Vivi actually is super cool. I had a really cool conversation with her today in DMs. She works with people that get out of prison and helping people get out of prison and recovery. And she was talking about like, what are the things that people need to do to be successful so they don't reoffend, and was explaining to me that the people that are surrounding Gypsy right now are going to not contribute to a successful reentry. And that if she stays on this track, she will reoffend because she's just back in her toxic mindset. And everything that she worked on while she was incarcerated to help her reenter is out of her system because of the people she's surrounded by. And that was one of the last fights that I had with Christy. Yeah, and Gypsy thinks that once she's off prison, she can commit a... thank you, Vivi, for that great conversation today. I'm just going to say this. And I had this conversation with Christy. I told her, if you cared about your fucking daughter, you wouldn't have had fucking cameras in her face the day she got out of prison. It wouldn't have mattered to document her release as some sort of like huge celebration. What normal mother that claims that this is a person who's been a victim all her life would believe that putting cameras in her fucking face the minute she got out of prison was a good idea? And then sticks her on social media, sets her up with a network to make a show. It proves their agenda isn't healthy. Exactly. Like, none of this helps her mental health. That was literally like my last conversation with Christy. I said, you guys told me that this was about advocacy and working and helping. You told me that it was all about helping other people, and all I see Gypsy doing is getting into fights with people on her social media, trying to put out a narrative that she wants out about herself, fighting with content creators, threatening people, bullying other creators. I see her wanting to think she's fucking Kim Kardashian. one of my texts, I talked to Bree once in text one day. And I said, Bree, she's not an influencer. And she said, I don't think that Gypsy calls herself an influencer. It was in her profile. I said, she will never be an influencer because she will always be the M word. You don't get to be an influencer when you're the M word. That's not how this works. You're never going to have the respect you believe you should have and the accolades you feel like you deserve because of what you did. You committed the gravest, most heinous act against a human that's possible. That's not influential. And people don't give a shit if you put makeup on. Okay? But she really was sold that she'd be able to do that. She believed her own hype. And she did that to her mother. Do you know how rare that is? And this is what Melissa Moore has made them believe, that she will be an inspiration. And that everything that we learned was wrong. And Gypsy's gonna prove us all that the cops were wrong, the investigators were wrong, the DA was wrong. And I was like, she doesn't need to be on social media. She doesn't need to be on a show. She needs to be out of the limelight. Why would you put a child that you said has no life experience, that doesn't know how to do anything, and that is a victim, why would you throw her into the wolves just so you can get your bag? Trying to see if I can. Or make her suffer. I told her that my thing with Gypsy is that she went from a highly controlled environment where her entire days were scheduled for her, and it was the same and it was routine. And believe it or not, most of us do best when we have routine. Children, they thrive with routine, and it's because the consistency is what keeps you sort of baseline. And she has no routine right now. She doesn't have programs that she's doing personally, because she claims that she had issues with substances. Missouri allows releases to treatment programs and halfway houses where people can get 1 foot into the real world and 1 foot out and still get services. And they can get more one-on-one and community support in these programs to help them transition. And I think that's where she should have gone. And that's what I told the family. Because I said, you threw her to the wolves. And so She didn't do, yeah, transitional housing. Thank you. They used to call them halfway houses. In Minnesota, they still call them halfway houses. I don't know if we had one of my husband's, a brother of his, that he has some half siblings that we don't see, by the way. We have no relationship with him, but he was in prison for a while and he went to a halfway house. But thank you for the heart, Moni. They are essentially the same. But she should have had that, and that was an option. They have residential programs she could have done for treatment. If she claims that she had the probably most concerning thing that I get out of Gypsy is that she claims that she was an addict, okay? But she's never had treatment. I do not know many people that have had what she claims to have had to the rug that she claims it was to, that have never gone to therapy and treatment for it. If you don't learn new coping mechanisms, you just transfer whatever you were doing this with into whatever else the next thing is. You need to get to the root. You need to get your mental health in check to figure out if there's an underlying mental illness that might be causing some of the compulsive behaviors, because there are some mental health disorders that, if they're not treated, can cause impulse control, and people will use substances to cope. She never got treatment. Ever. So she's the first person I've ever known that somehow recovered without any help from anyone. How? Which just makes me think she was either not an addict, and that's a lie, I will say I know people that have gone cold turkey, but it depends on how they became addicted, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. I've had friends that have had injuries, and it was from being prescribed it, and then they physically became dependent on it, and they were able to go cold turkey because it was never like they were seeking it out for pain, or for a high. But I've never known anyone that used for the sake of using that could just go cold turkey and not need help. Okay, I don't know what the common terminology now is, if it's a user, abuser, substance use disorder. Everything has changed. All the language and verbiage changes. I don't know what to tell you. If I used the wrong word, my apologies. So Gypsy was listing for friendships. She had she said, my list of what it takes to master the act of friending. When I listened to this, when I read this, I thought, this sounds more like a sociopath plotting out how she's going to mask and mirror whatever her friends want. She wrote, listen closely and attentively. Be a vault. Confidentiality in friendship is very important and sacred to me. Lots of laughter is required. Have genuine care and concern for your friends' well-being and happiness. When I saw that, I was like, that's so weird. If you have to remind yourself to have care and concern for someone, that tells me you don't have empathy. Like, if you have to remind yourself you need to do that, the truth, even if the truth is hard and will hurt. Don't judge ever. Always be a safe zone. That's toxic. You cannot judge, but you also cannot be a yes person and an enabler. The worst kind of friend is the one that lets you walk into a burning house and says nothing about it because they're not judging you. I'm gonna go rob a bank. Don't judge me. Cough, cough, Bree. Prove your trust. Don't breach theirs. Gypsy, didn't you breach your ex-husband's trust by putting out text messages that he sent to you to prove that he was going after you and it wasn't the other way around to clear your name? I'm not a girl with one closed eye. Notice your friends. Be aware of their moods, their body language, read the room, and be empathetic. Be aware of moods, body language, read the room, and be empathetic. You have to tell yourself to be empathetic. And you have to tell yourself to have care and concern for people. This is Gypsy's list of what she needs to do to be a good friend. Don't be passive aggressive when you are not happy with a friend. Talk it through. No bless your hearts allowed. Have things in common, but also complement each other and teach each other your interest. Friendship, like love, is not jealous. So they say narcissists always tell on themselves, okay? So what this list is telling me is that Gypsy's jealous of people in her life, and it's hard for her to empathize with people because she's jealous. And she gets vindictive, and she doesn't trust people, and she is always competing with people. She's untrustworthy. She's not a vault. She doesn't laugh very much. She doesn't listen, and don't tell the truth. That's basically what I got out of this. This is her list of, my list of what it takes to master the act of friending. I think she's a narcissistic sociopath, if I'm being honest. But I'm not a psychologist. I don't claim to be a psychologist. Oh, you guys, I saved this. I want to show you this. Now that she's about to be a mom, I just want to, guys, remind you of something that she said earlier this year.
And I can't donate my time solely to raising a child at this point.
I want you to get all the things that you want first. Mm-hmm. You won't be able to get your nose done. You might not be able to get your teeth done.
I won't. If you're pregnant, you can't undergo rhinoplasty.
Yeah. there's a lot of things.
We may need to stop at the store and get morning after pill.
She can't donate her time to a child. I'm scared for the baby too. All right, you guys, I gotta go. My son's about to get in the bath and I want to say goodnight to him. I haven't eaten dinner yet. I might come back on later if I'm downstairs. We were having such a good chat. Maybe I'll let some of you guys come on with me. I don't know. But bye, guys.